Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 3 of 2022. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So let's crack on. First one is, we keep seeing these, if you're a video editor or a special effects designer, this is coming after your job. However, what this is an AI that can actually do sort of seamless motion tracking video effects. It's quite smart. So what's going on here is it can understand the 3 dimensions of a scene even when presented with a 2D video. So it can understand all the parallaxing, it can remove or add objects to anything, remove items from the video, etc, etc. So as you see here, you say here's a child on a bike, and you can say I'd like it to be integrated with this scene. I'd like this scene I've got of, for instance, ice. I'd like this runner to run across this graffiti that wasn't there, and then also I'd like this this goose to completely change, or I'd like to add some things to this lady's dress. And as you can see, it's actually wrinkling and doing all the things that you'd expect it to do. So it's doing all that by itself. So yeah, it's a research paper at the moment. I think it's sponsored by Adobe. So imagine this coming to After Effects anytime soon. There you go. So really interesting video. It's a 2-minute paper, so it's really quite digestible. Go and have a watch. This is, I used to do quite a lot of patent news stuff, and this is Disney, or at least Disney Resorts, have been granted a patent for personal hologram projection, I guess you'd call it, or what they call a virtual world simulator. So it's almost the opposite of what's really going on elsewhere, which is the metaverse, and everybody's going to a digital world. Actually, Disney have come the opposite way. So if you are at a resort, then usually what happens is you either have an animatronic, or you have an actor or actress who will come out and sort of dressed as Mickey or something like that, just for you. So this actually uses laser projections onto nearby surfaces. So you've seen this with sort of building projections and that sort of thing, where they map the environment and therefore know exactly how a projection is going to work in a 3D space. This is on a personal level. So the patent goes into sort of quite some detail about different ways of using it, but essentially you would go around with your mobile phone, it would recognize it was you, it would then say, hey, Dino's just going onto the high street or whatever it is, and therefore we should project a projection just for him on that wall over there, and it would have, it would animate and all that sort of stuff. There's also this interesting, which you can see the diagram here, which is one of the patent illustrations. It actually can be used as almost like a magical torch as well. So the projector doesn't have to come from a remote projector somewhere where you can't see it. It can actually be something almost in your hand. So you project, you uncover things in a dark room, for instance, and it projects the characters into there. So it's really quite interesting about how they're bringing real world to life using virtual elements, almost the opposite of the metaverse. This is really neat. We used to work in advertising, so we used to report on these sorts of things all the time, but this really caught my eye. So this is a company called Distance, and they are a running shop. Sort of their philosophy is about urban running and breaking the mold of sort of running, etc., in cities. And in Paris, they've just put, at least in certain parts of the central Paris, they've just put a speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour. So that's what, 20 miles an hour, something like that. So just about beatable if you're a really fast runner. So they hired some really fast runners, some professional runners, and there's a little bit of hijinks and jiggery poker in this, but essentially what they did is they got the runners to run past the speed cameras and use the speed camera, quote unquote, footage and the images as part of their advertising, which I thought was really, really neat. Some very sort of lateral thinking advertising in there, using a bit of technology and just a bit of I think actually what they did is they probably took their own photos, but they did technically run faster than the speed limit. So I just thought it was really, really neat, kind of great use of technology and advertising, really. There you go. This one was quite neat. So this is how can you tell there's a virus in a thing without really doing anything to the computer or the circuit board. So this is a very simple thing, uses a Raspberry Pi, so a very sort of low power, low cost circuit board or computer. Now it turns out what you can do is you can listen to almost the distress waves of a CPU, basically a chip. You can actually listen to the electromagnetic radiation coming off that chip when it's under attack by malware or virus. So what you do is you essentially listen very, very closely to it, and they managed to detect, I think, 3 viruses or 3 types of malware, and they did it with a 99.82% accuracy. So it's really, really interesting in as much as the virus writers or the malware writers can't detect when this is being detected. So they have no idea how to deploy countermeasures to this, basically. So it's a really, really interesting anti-malware device, which might be able to be put into the hardware of the future, and you won't even know it's actually detecting it for you. So I thought that was kind of interesting. There's some other things going on around this as well, which is using electromagnetic radiation to prove things. And I really love this one, so it's very, very interesting. There you go. This is FaceBit. This is a smart face mask. So this is an N95 mask. So it is, it's all it's sort of medical grade. Now what's happening here is there's a little chip in the middle there. And this is prototype at the moment, but what that chip does is it can use sort of biometric sensors, essentially very subtle changes in your face and colour and all those sorts of things of your lips to actually detect where your pulse is. Now this is how smartwatches do it, so it's nothing particularly new. And it can also do things like detect your breath and your breathing, so it can actually therefore get your heart rate, and your breathing rate, and it can start to do interesting things with that. So for instance, if you have an elevated heart rate, an elevated breathing rate, you might be stressed, and therefore it knows the situation and it can do something about that as well, which is quite interesting. It can also tell, because of the gas vacuum that actually is, or the seal that is around your mouth, it can detect when your mask is loose or not sealed correctly. But there's some interesting stuff in here as well about, there is a tiny little battery in there to keep it going, but it is actually also supplementing its power with your breath, the heat and motion as well. So apparently it can last 11 days. So this sensor can be moved between masks as well, so it's not a throwaway thing, it's just basically something you put in an existing mask. So really, really interesting. So we're starting to see this now. We think that masks are going to be around for a while. We're starting to see some people trying to put some proper development into mask technology. Who'd have thought? Lodestar, and there's also another company as well who do this, but basically this is the first commercially available, or commercially viable, should I say. It's not quite available just yet, but it has been unveiled this week. So this is, I mean, depending on where you sit on this debate, or whether philosophy really is whether you should even be available at all. However, let's just assume that they are in America, and therefore smart guns are a good thing. So there's quite a few deaths each year from unattended or stolen guns, for instance. So this is a solution to that. So it's a smart gun. We've seen this probably in James Bond movies, or we have seen this in James Bond movies. So the gun itself has fingerprint sensors in it, so you can't actually fire it without being authorized. And the gun needs to be pre-authorized using an app as well. So even if somebody steals the gun, if the gun checks to see whether it should actually be working or not, and is in the location of the app, then all that needs to check out before it'll even consider firing. So that's kind of interesting. There's also this is causing a little bit of consternation with the gun lobbies as well, because there is a law in New Jersey in 2019 that said as soon as a smart gun is available, then it has to be sold in gun shops in New Jersey, I believe. So all of a sudden this has now started that law in process. So they will now need to be, by law, available in gun shops, whether you like it or not. So I think that's, depending on, say, where you are on the gun thing, this is either totally unpalatable or it's a step in the right direction if you do have to have them. Thought that was kind of interesting. This might be the beginning of responsible gun ownership, whether you like it or not. And finally, I thought this was a really good experiment. Now, a friend of mine, Kaz, if you're watching this, this also made me think of you, showed this me anyway, whilst generating NFTs on OpenSea. You can actually change the image that is referenced in the NFT. So this is actually Moxie Marlinspike, I assume you pronounce it like that, who is actually the CEO of Signal, so the messaging app Signal, and did this really interesting blog post just pointing out the kind of the shady areas of NFTs and just how it can be abused, really. So because an NFT really only has an information packet in it, it doesn't actually have the artwork, for instance, or the object in the NFT. It says the NFT is just a certificate that points to where the actual thing is. So using that, basically what Moxie did was said, well, if you're looking at the NFT on OpenSea, it will then say, okay, fine. And you can use your IP to look up what you're looking at. So basically it said, if you're looking at OpenSea, deliver this image. If you're looking at Rarible, which is another NFT site, deliver this image. But when it actually goes into your wallet, it can detect that, and it actually shows you the poop emoji. So it's really interesting that the actual icon you get, or the artwork you get, is actually completely dynamic. It's up to whoever's delivering the image in the end. So therefore the NFT is not necessarily a thing. So this has been a known issue for a while, even to the point where, well, the website where your artwork is could go down or could be owned by somebody else, and all your artwork could go overnight. So it's still, this is part of how it works. But I thought it was really interesting, just a sort of a social experiment really, to turn your NFT into poop in your wallet. There you go, it's as simple as that. With that, we are done. Hopefully that was interesting, hopefully it was useful, and I will see you again next week.